So we'll get started with our conversation. I'm really curious to know what you remember the most about being a collegiate athlete. And I'll go to Nneka first if you want to start.
You know, I feel like as a collegiate athlete, you go through like as many stages. You know, of course, you go through kind of the doe-eyed stage where you don't know what's going on. But you feel somewhat kind of like responsible for how your journey goes because you selected the school. Like it's where you decided to go. So it's like a home before it becomes a home. But kind of leaning into all of that, you realize that you're not the only one that's like new on campus. And it's not even just your teammates. You have several classmates that don't know what's going on either. So for me, initially, like when I got to Stanford, as nervous and as anxious as I was, because I wanted to do so well and I wanted to forge relationships, I realized that I already had kind of like a framework built in for me. You know, I think as athletes, we don't realize that we have a family built in our team. So I really leaned on that, and I really appreciated the help that I got from my upperclassmen, from my coaches, of course. And at Stanford, it's all about being, you know, a student on and off the court. And I will say that it's not just at Stanford. When I talk to my friends about it, and a lot of people who graduate and are now in the league or doing other things, they really always impart upon the younger generations about how you really need to immerse yourself in every part of your collegiate experience. And so it's been really great to be able to look back and see all of the things that I went through and all the people that I still have connections to now that have opened doors for me, even in my professional career. And that includes USA as well. It's interesting because I didn't get to go to summer school my first year at Stanford, or like the summer before you're a freshman, because I was with USA. But in a lot of ways, I found that was kind of like a blessing in disguise, because I came in with a different perspective. I came in with a little bit more of a competitive perspective when I was approaching practices and trying to, you know, of course, do my very best when I was, you know, making my way on the team. So that's kind of what I remember most about it. And the relationships, I think, is the most important part that you should get out of your college experience.
And I'm grateful to wear both Stanford and USA on my chest, and I really love it here.
Agreed. Nneka definitely said it a lot better than I would have said it, but retweet all the things she said, and especially just the relationships. That's what you remember most. I know I don't remember the scores of any games, and I'm only 1 year post being in college. You remember the feeling that people gave you, what it felt like to be, you know, like in the apartments with your teammates, being on the court with them. Like 2 of my teammates are in my wedding. These 2 peanuts, Kristen and Olivia, are invited to my wedding. Like these are lifelong relationships that you will have, and that's what I even miss now. Is it's really nice to like have your own place when you're in the league, but I miss just being able to like walk next door and say hi to one of my teammates, or, you know, game nights that we would do. So absolutely just the relationships that you form with the people on your team. That's what I remember the most.
And how is it, in your opinion, being reunited playing with your best friend?
Well, I wish she was here. I think she's home.
And that's it, folks.
Tell me what it was like transitioning to your pro careers.
I mean, it's difficult. You feel like a freshman all over again, and everyone knows freshman year is the worst because you don't know anything, and you're like thrown into a whole nother situation all over again. You know, it's a new city, a new team, you have all new plays to learn, and it's at a quicker pace because our season is so short. You have to learn things really quickly or you won't play. So that was really hard, just, you know, learning a whole new system, learning my teammates. I mean, even names, like it's hard to learn everyone's names like right away. And then, you know, I switched positions too. I played mostly the 4 in college, and I switched to the 3 position, which was also difficult. So it's all pretty hard, but I was really lucky. I had really great vets on my team. And Nneka is a great example of this because on USA, I talk about this all the time. Nneka is like a great teammate. She's someone who takes you under their wing. If I have any questions, I feel comfortable asking Nneka. So like I said, I was lucky to have that on my team. So my vets really helped like make the transition easier.
Thanks, Fee. Fee hit the nail on the head. Like, to be honest, I don't think that there's anything that you go through before you enter the league to give you an idea of what it's going to be like. it's challenging in so many different ways because everyone ends up having to deal with different things from the gate, because like you have different draft picks, you have different teams, you have different ownerships, you have different GMs that you don't understand, I guess, like from a business perspective, that is now very much a part of like being on a team in the WNBA. I will say that the first thing that I realized when I realized that I was like in the league and like no longer in college was when I remember we went on our first road game when I was a rookie in Seattle, and we had shoot around. And when we got back off like the bus at shoot around, they're like, all right, be on the bus at 4:30. And I was like, where's pregame? And they're like, they were like, that's what your per diem's for. And I was like, oh my God, I have to find my own food in a city I don't know. So like, there's so many different things that, you know, that really make you, that kind of ground you into like that professionalism. But Fee is right. Like if you have great vets, and if you don't, like you can just kind of like become kind of like friends with other rookies or younger players, and they'll really help you guide you through like your rookie year.
What was your aha moment, like, oh, I'm a professional basketball player?
Well, there's two. One, basketball coming to the League One was we played New York, and I had to guard Kia Nurse. She was one of my old teammates. She's way faster than I remember when she was on my team. It's hard being a guard, getting through screens. It's hard. Like, I never had to do that as a post player. You just have to like front the post, you know, like help a little bit if they go to set a screen. She's running all over the court, like going through elevator screens and off stagger screens. And yeah, we watched that film like 4 times. It was horrible. My regular coming to the League One, probably like you're expected to be at practice and like that's it. So the rest of the day is so free. It's great, but it's also kind of hard because you're in charge of your own nutrition, you're in charge of your own like weightlifting plan or whatever. And especially like the first month, like I didn't do any of that stuff because it feels like freedom. Like there's no coaches telling you have to be here. You don't have like school to deal with. Just kind of finding that balance is hard at first, but if you can try to get a head start on that, I would recommend it.
I don't even know the day. I don't know Is it Saturday?
No, it's Friday the 15th. We play Saturday.
Okay, yeah. Friday the 15th.
We don't know what day, what month, what year.
What year, what time. But we're here. Time to play some basketball.
What is it like competing at this point, having been able to be NCAA champions, WNBA champion, WNBA MVP, Rookie of the Year, and you're still competing for spots on an Olympic team?
You know, like something that I think about a lot anytime I have to gather with USA is the first time that I ever went to USA, and it was like a 16 under like training camp. And out of that camp, there's literally only 2 of us left that are still, kind of in the portal, and that's me and Sky. And it's funny because like in our early years, we said, hey, we're gonna be the 2 that are the last ones standing. And it's crazy to see that has come to fruition. But, it's one thing that I thought that was so weird for me was that when we had a training camp in Connecticut, I believe it was Connecticut. No, it was South Carolina, like last year. And I was the oldest one there. And I was just kind of like, this is weird because like, like when you gather in the circle, Carol and the coaches always talk about like, yeah, like your vets. And they like pointed to me and I was like, I don't have a gold medal yet. So it was just kind of like, for me in my mind, it's just kind of like, wow, like you can still be a veteran and still be, looking to achieve different goals. Like it's not just for younger players. Like you have a lot of veterans out here that are still grinding. You have a lot of veterans out here that, want more. I always say that you're not living your life right if you feel like you've mastered it. Like there's no point in time that you should ever feel like, this is life. I got it down. Like, no, there's no way you should ever think that way.
It doesn't really matter what personal accolades you have. When you get to the USA team, this is like the top tier, what everyone wants to get to. There's no higher level than USA. And so one thing that really went through my mind is when I was watching the women play, you would be like, okay, in the league, she's 100% taking that shot every single time. But when you get to the USA, she'll like pass it for a better shot. So it really is a team mentality. It doesn't matter how many MVPs or championships you've won. We're here for a goal to get there together. It's not about anyone shining brighter than the other. when you're at USA. It's totally a team mentality. And so, I mean, even trying to get on the team now, it doesn't matter what I've done to this point. I need to work as hard as I possibly can every training camp, like Nneka said, so that I have a chance to get on this team, because there's 12 spots and there's way more than 12 great players in the league. So at any point, you have to think that you can be replaced, because you can. So you have to bring your A game every time.
Thank you both. All right, I think it's a good time to start opening it up for questions.
What is one thing that you have learned as a pro that you wish you would have known as a college player? You kind of already touched on that, but like, yeah.
I mean, really, like, I would have to reiterate just like communicating with my teammates. You know, I think that's kind of, that's definitely something that has transformed how I play, and just how I approach like every day in practice and every game. That bond, it's something that a lot of people, like, you know, they say teamwork. They say, hey, you know, make sure you're close with your teammates, make sure you guys are a family. But like, you really have to practice that.
So I obviously haven't been in the league as much as Nneka, but for like on the court, something I learned this year is it's really important to be able to shoot the three. So in college, it was kind of like, if you're open, sure, you can take the shot. In the pros, I think the league is really moving to like everyone on the court can shoot. So if you can like get that down and be comfortable with that, by the time you get to the league, you'll have more of a head start.
Mine's not necessarily like completely basketball related, but kind of more of a life kind of advice. So like stepping into the real world and the professional world, have you guys ever experienced like being a woman and like the hardship of it? Like, is there an instance of you kind of running into a situation where you are like not necessarily respected as much as like your male counterpart? And if there is, like, do you remember the situation and kind of how you handled that?
You know, that's an amazing question. And I think that for me, I can't really say anything outside of, you know, the usual trolls, of course. But, you know, being a part of the union has really opened my eyes to how far we have to go. And so being on the call with the likes of players like you guys is why we do what we do. It's why we signed our recent CBA. Like, we want to see the league better than when we entered it. And I think that that kind of was my first real experience of kind of negotiating my worth, or negotiating the worth of my constituents, with this last CBA. And so we pushed our limits. You know, we wanted to squeeze the juice out of the fruit as much as possible, because we understood what we're valued at, but we also understand that it takes a journey, and it takes like a force of women. You know, it takes a force of people who believe in women as well, to be able to truly make that difference that we know needs to happen. And I would have to say that that's kind of like that's my biggest experience from, you know, kind of understanding like, hey, you know, we still have a long way to go. Like, we're still out here trying to kind of place our value out there and see who's going to invest in us. So yeah, that was an excellent question.
That is a good question. And kind of like Nneka, I don't have like one huge instance where that has happened. But I'm sure, just like you guys, anytime you go to play pickup, like, it's annoying the surprise on people's face when you turn out to be good at the sport that you play. And just like the normal trolls online, or it just like really gets on my nerves when someone's like, oh, you're pretty good. Or like, I watched a game, it's actually kind of fun to watch. Like, yeah, we're better than the men at sports. We're way more fundamental than they are. So that just kind of stuff is just annoying. And one thing I do regret about last year is not being on the players union. Each team has 2 reps, and I just hadn't known anything about it. But like Nneka, for example, has in my player rep on my team, the things that they bring up, that they bring your attention to, it's really cool, like what they're doing and the awareness that they're bringing in, the change that they're trying to make for the league, because there are so many things that we want to get better at. And
what was the biggest or best piece of advice that you got in, through this journey, or that you give yourself to really push yourself through this journey?
I would say confidence is the biggest thing. Having confidence in yourself, it can make up for so many things. I think it's really hard to stay confident even through like lows when you go through a game. It's natural through a season to have lows during it where you feel like you're in a funk. But if you can push past that, it absolutely just accelerates your game, and you get confidence by being in the gym. So like getting up extra shots, doing film, making sure when you get on the court, you know what you're doing. So just doing everything that you can to stay, sure of yourself.
Yeah, I think the one thing that was most important for me is it always goes back to kind of confidence for me. And for me, I always go by whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. And so like, it's just like kind of like your thoughts are things. Like if you think that something is going to go wrong, then you're giving energy to that, and then your actions are going to follow, and then it's probably going to end up exactly how you're thinking. So what you can do is basically just do your best at any given moment, whether it's on the court, on the bus, in the airport, in the game, setting a screen, whatever it is, just do your best and let the rest just kind of like go. And what happened what happens will happen. And so I think that's just kind of the most important thing.
What's your favorite league story?
I have quite a few. Like, I would have to say that, like, okay, some of my most memorable stories, like, one was when we were playing in a triple overtime game with the Tulsa Shock, and then Candace and AB jumped on my face, and then my face was, like, bleeding. You can Google it. It's actually quite ridiculous. And it ended up being, like, a really small cut, but it was just, like, a series of unfortunate events. Another favorite story that I had was when Black Lives Matter was really in full effect in the summer, and all of the teams wore those T-shirts that was advocating against gun violence and I guess like police brutality. It was just amazing to be on the phone because I've been on the EC for a long time, so like I was on the phone when we were trying to decide what to do and all of that. And then another favorite that I had too was this was in 2017, I believe. Yes. We were playing in the finals against the Lynx, and we had to decide like literally minutes before we ran out for the anthem whether or not we were going to run out, because that's when Colin Kaepernick started kneeling, and so like teams started not going out for the anthem. And it was just amazing to see like how we were making that decision in the moment, like because it was such a big deal. There was so much on the line for the game. Like it was just one of those memories where you're like, wow, like what you're playing for is not as serious as what's going on in the world. And so for us to come together and have that discussion literally like minutes before we ran out to go and win game one was it was pretty amazing.
So Nneka, you had mentioned like different leadership styles earlier. How would you describe like your leadership style during your collegiate career?
I was definitely like, me and Fee are the same. I'm definitely a lead by example. Especially in college, it was definitely a lead by example, like play hard and set an example by what you do, like challenge other players by how hard you go. That was certainly how I was. Looking back though, now what I know now, I probably would be a little bit more vocal, because now I'm very vocal. Like I stick to leading by example, of course, but I'm very vocal now. And I guess like when, there's always stages. And so like I've done a really great job of like speaking to my teammates and not like speaking to them later on, like speaking to them in real time. If I have to tell you something right now, you got to do it. But now I'm trying my best because everyone thinks that I'm like a positive Patty. Like I'm never negative. And it's not that I want to be negative or if I want to say something negative, but like I think right now I'm trying to grapple with communicating the hard stuff in a way that can be received, And so a lot of that, it's very challenging because with teammates, like it's like family. It's like, you should be able to tell your family anything, but at the same time, you care about them so much that you don't want to upset them or offend them. And so I'm really doing my best now to try and not only communicate the good things, but also communicate, the things that need to be worked on. And that also, there's a flip side of that. When you do that, you're opening yourself up now for someone to communicate like that to you. And so you have to come to terms now with also taking accountability for maybe you did something wrong or how you made someone else feel. And so that's something that I'm truly working on as best as I can in my career right now.